The steering wheel was slick with my blood, and through the spider-webbed windshield, I could see Jake's Mercedes pulling away from the crash site. He didn't even slow down. Stupid little songwriter thought she could expose us. Sophia's voice echoed from the phone call I'd accidentally recorded 20 minutes earlier. The brake lines were easier to cut than I expected. Jake, you owe me dinner for this one. I should have been thinking about my parents, or the songs I'd never write, or the stages I'd never perform on. Instead, all I could think about was that pathetic song I'd uploaded 2 years ago. 6 months of lies. The track that went viral when Jake forgot our anniversary. The song that made my career and apparently sealed my death warrant. Blood pooled in my mouth as I remembered the contracts I'd found in Jake's office today. Every major song I'd written in the past 18 months, credited to other artists. My melodies, my lyrics, my pain, all signed away through carefully manipulated legal documents that I'd been too trusting to read properly. And the worst part? The anniversary song that launched everything had been the bait. Jake had deliberately forgotten that dinner, knowing I'd write something emotional about it. He'd been studying my creative process for months, learning how heartbreak transformed into music in my hands. When I uploaded the track in a moment of petty revenge, he'd known exactly which industry contacts to alert, which narratives to plant, which contracts to prepare. Maya Chen, the unstable ex-girlfriend who writes about her feelings and posts them online for attention, had been Sophia's character assassination strategy. Every interview, every social media interaction, every industry meeting had been carefully orchestrated to paint me as talented but unreliable. A liability. As consciousness slipped away, I could hear sirens in the distance. Too late. But in my final moment, I wasn't thinking about justice or revenge. I was thinking about how Jake had smiled when I played him that anniversary song for the first time. How he'd kissed my forehead and said, "Baby, you're going to be a star." He'd been right. I just didn't know he'd planned to kill me once I served my purpose. The last thing I saw was my phone screen, still displaying the article I'd been rushing to publish. How my ex-boyfriend stole my songs and destroyed my career, a music industry expose. The draft that would have ruined him if I'd lived long enough to hit publish. Then everything went black. I woke up to "Someone You Loved" playing from my phone alarm, and for a moment, the irony was so perfect I almost laughed. Then reality crashed down like a broken amp falling from a stage. My apartment. The same cracked ceiling, the same guitar picks scattered across my nightstand, the same picture of Jake and me at the Mercury Lounge taped to my mirror. But this was impossible. I'd died in that car crash. I'd felt my ribs puncture my lungs, tasted my own blood, watched Jake drive away like he was leaving a parking lot. The date on my phone read March 15th, our 6-month anniversary. The day that had started everything in my previous life, if that's what I was calling the cosmic joke that had apparently reset my existence. I sat up slowly, testing my body. No broken bones, no cuts. No trauma except the memories of betrayal and death that felt more real than the morning sunlight streaming through my windows. But I remembered everything. Jake's true plans, Sophia's manipulations, the systematic theft of my intellectual property, the industry connections I'd naively trusted. This time would be different. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Sorry, babe, stuck in back-to-back meetings all day, rain check on dinner?" In my first life, this message had devastated me. I'd spent hours getting ready, picked out the perfect restaurant, even written him a song to commemorate our relationship milestone. When he'd casually canceled via text, I'd channeled my heartbreak into 6 months of lies and uploaded it in a moment of raw emotion. Now I stared at his message with the clarity of someone who'd literally died learning the truth. Jake wasn't stuck in meetings. He was with Sophia, planning which of my songs to steal next. The cancellation was calculated. He needed me emotional and creative, not happy and satisfied. Instead of crying, I smiled. I spent the morning setting up recording equipment, with the technical knowledge I'd gained from 2 years of industry experience that technically hadn't happened yet. This time, 6 months of lies wouldn't be a desperate emotional outburst. It would be a precision-guided missile aimed at the heart of the music industry's power structure. I wrote the song in an hour, but I crafted it with the accumulated wisdom of a dead woman. Every chord progression was designed to catch the attention of specific A&Rs I knew were hunting for fresh talent. The production quality was deliberately sophisticated, too polished for a bedroom recording, suggesting serious backing and professional training. Most importantly, I embedded musical signatures and industry references that would make the right people very curious about who was behind Maya Chen. The lyrics told the story of forgotten promises and shallow love, but I layered in subtle references to industry scandals that only insiders would catch. Lines about selling souls in boardroom deals, and contracts written in disappearing ink that would resonate with artists who'd been exploited, executives who'd done the exploiting, and journalists who covered both. By afternoon, I had a song that was simultaneously personal and universal, amateur and professional, vulnerable and dangerous. I uploaded it to my social media accounts, the same platforms that had barely 200 followers in my original timeline. But this time, I didn't just post and hope. I used every piece of industry knowledge from my previous life to ensure the right people would see it. The caption was simple. He forgot our 6-month anniversary, so I wrote this. At least my music remembers what matters. Then I sat back and watched my phone explode. The first comment came within minutes, and I recognized the username immediately at Harmony Records A and R. In my previous life, Marcus Rivera had discovered me 6 months too late, after Jake had already locked me into predatory contracts with Stellar Records. This time, I'd made sure my song would ping every algorithm Marcus used to find new talent. Holy shit, who is this? DM me immediately. Marcus Rivera, Harmony Records. Within an hour, the comments section had become a battlefield. Representatives from 5 major labels were publicly bidding for my attention, each trying to outdo the others with promises of creative control, marketing budgets, and advance payments. It was exactly what I'd engineered, but watching it happen in real time was surreal. At Atlantic Records VP, Maya, our legal team can have contracts ready by tomorrow, full artistic control guaranteed. At Universal Music Talent, Atlantic can't offer what we can. Let's talk real numbers. Check your DMs. At Sony Music Arts, forget the majors, independent partnership, 50-50th split, your vision your way. But the most satisfying part was what wasn't happening. Stellar Records, Jake's company, was notably absent from the feeding frenzy. I knew why. Jake was probably staring at his computer screen in horror, recognizing my voice, my songwriting style, my ability to create something that could shift industry power dynamics overnight. Music bloggers and influencers started piling on, dissecting every aspect of the song. Someone with the handle at Indie Music Deep posted a thread breaking down the production techniques. This isn't bedroom pop. Listen to that compression, those layered harmonies, the stereo field positioning. Either Maya Chen has access to serious equipment and engineers, or she's the most naturally gifted producer I've heard in years. Another user at Music Business TAA caught the industry references I'd embedded. Anyone else notice the lyrics about disappearing ink contracts? This sounds like someone with inside knowledge of label practices, very curious about this artist's background. By evening, the song had 50,000 plays and climbing. Music journalists were reaching out for interviews. Playlist curators were adding it to their new Music Friday selections. The hashtag #6monthsoflies was trending. My phone rang. Jake. Maya, what the hell is this? His voice was tight with barely controlled panic. What's what? I kept my tone light, innocent. This song, this stunt, you're making me look like an asshole. I wrote a song about my feelings. How does that make you look like anything? You know exactly what you did. The timing, the lyrics, the way you're playing up this whole forgotten anniversary thing for sympathy. In my previous life, I would have apologized. I would have explained that I was just hurt and needed to express myself creatively. I would have offered to take the song down if it was causing him professional embarrassment. This time, I turned on my voice recorder app. Jake, are you asking me to censor my artistic expression because it might reflect poorly on your reputation? Don't twist this into some free speech bullshit, Maya. We both know this is about revenge because I had to cancel one dinner. Is that what you think our relationship means to me? One dinner? Look, I don't have time for your emotional games right now. I've got actual work to do, actual careers to manage. Not everyone can just strum a guitar and call it a job. Perfect. Every dismissive word was being captured in crystal clear audio. So my music isn't a real job? Your music is. It's cute, okay? It's a nice hobby, but don't pretend like one viral moment makes you a serious artist. The industry eats little girls like you for breakfast. Little girls like me? You know what I mean, naive, emotional, no business sense. Maya, you uploaded a song about our relationship without even asking me. What label is going to want to work with someone that unpredictable? I let the silence stretch, knowing he'd fill it with even more damaging admissions. Look, I'm trying to protect you here. I work in this industry. I know how these people think. They'll use you up and throw you away unless you have someone who understands the game. Someone like me. Someone like you, I repeated. Yes. Someone who can guide your career properly. Make sure you don't make mistakes that'll hurt you long term. Is that what you've been doing? Guiding my career? I've been trying to, but you don't listen. You just follow your feelings instead of strategy. That's fine for writing songs, but it's not how you build a sustainable music career. I see. Do you? Because if you did, you'd delete this song and let me help you figure out a real plan for your music. Something professional. I hung up and immediately backed up the recording to 3 different cloud services. Then I posted it to Twitter with the caption, "He forgot our anniversary. I wrote a song about it. Here's what he thinks about my hobby." The internet went absolutely nuclear. Within 48 hours of posting Jake's recorded rant, my follower count had exploded from 200 to 50,000. The recording had been shared by major music publications, feminist blogs, and artist advocacy groups. Jake's dismissive comments about little girls and cute hobbies had struck a nerve with every woman who'd ever been condescended to in a creative field. But more importantly, it had attracted exactly the kind of attention I needed. Marcus Rivera called me personally the next morning. "Maya, I've been in this business for 15 years, and I've never seen someone handle a viral moment with this level of strategic thinking. We need to meet." I met him at a coffee shop in Greenwich Village, the same place where he'd eventually signed 3 Grammy winners. Marcus was exactly as I remembered from my previous life: sharp suit, sharper eyes, and the kind of confidence that came from discovering talent before anyone else recognized it. "So," he said, sliding a business card across the table, "tell me how a 24-year-old bedroom artist knows enough about industry dynamics to embed AANDR bait in her songs." I'd prepared for this question. I've been studying the business side of music since I started writing. I figure talent without strategy is just expensive therapy. He laughed. "Smart girl. That's exactly the kind of thinking that separates artists from stars." He leaned forward. "I'm going to be direct with you, Maya. Harmony Records wants to sign you, but not as another indie darling who sells 10,000 copies and disappears. We want to build you into a force that changes how this industry treats artists." In my previous life, I would have been overwhelmed by this conversation. This time, I knew Marcus was destined to become the most powerful manager in the industry within 2 years. Harmony Records was about to make a series of strategic acquisitions that would turn them from a mid-tier label into a major player. I also knew that Marcus valued artists who understood business as much as creativity. "I'm interested," I said, "but I want to talk specifics. Rights retention, creative control, marketing strategy, and profit sharing." His eyebrows shot up. "You want to negotiate your own contract?" "I want to understand what I'm signing." Jake was right about one thing. This industry does eat naive artists for breakfast. I don't plan to be naive. We spent 3 hours discussing contract terms that wouldn't typically be offered to a new artist. But I knew which battles to fight and which points to concede based on knowledge I shouldn't have possessed. When Marcus offered a standard 80/20th split in the label's favor, I countered with 60/40ths, citing specific industry precedents from deals that hadn't technically happened yet. "Where did you learn about the Billie Eilish renegotiation?" he asked suspiciously. "Industry blogs," I lied smoothly. "Plus, her brother Phineas talks about business strategy in interviews." By the end of our meeting, I had a deal that preserved my creative control, guaranteed marketing support, and included profit-sharing terms that most artists didn't see until their 3rd album. But signing with Harmony was just the first step. I spent the following weeks methodically building relationships with people I knew would become industry powerhouses. I reached out to producers who were currently unknown but would later work with A-list artists. I collaborated with songwriters who were struggling now but would become hitmakers within the year. I invested my advance money in streaming platforms and music tech companies that I knew were about to explode in value. Most importantly, I started documenting everything. Every conversation with industry executives was recorded. Every email was backed up. Every meeting was followed by detailed notes. In my previous life, Jake had destroyed my career through careful manipulation and lack of evidence. This time, I was building an impenetrable legal fortress around my intellectual property and business relationships. I also began reaching out to other artists who'd been exploited by the system. Sarah Martinez, an indie folk singer who'd been dropped by her label after refusing to sleep with an executive. David Kim, a producer who'd been blacklisted after speaking out about wage theft. Angela Washington, a country artist whose songs had been given to white performers without credit. Instead of competing with these artists, I started building a network. We shared information about problematic industry figures, warned each other about predatory contracts, and collaborated on songs that addressed systemic issues in music business. I was creating the kind of artist advocacy network that I desperately needed in my previous life. But even as I built my empire, I kept one eye on Jake and Sophia. Jake's reaction to my sudden industry success had been predictable. He'd started spreading rumors about my emotional instability and unprofessional behavior. He'd contacted several of my new business partners with warnings about my history of using personal relationships for career advancement. The problem for Jake was that I now had evidence of his pattern of manipulation, respected industry allies, and a growing platform to expose his behavior. Every attempt he made to sabotage my career only provided more material for the documentary I was secretly producing about music industry exploitation. Sophia had tried a different approach. She'd reached out through mutual friends, suggesting we clear the air about the Jake situation. She'd positioned herself as another woman who'd been caught in the middle of relationship drama, emphasizing that we should support each other instead of fighting over a man. I'd agreed to meet her, wearing a wire. "Listen, Maya," she'd said over expensive cocktails. "I know this whole situation has been messy, but Jake and I aren't even serious. He's just useful for my brand partnerships and industry connections. We could both benefit from playing this smarter." "What do you mean?" "Well, you're obviously talented and you've got this whole authentic artist thing working for you. I've got 200,000 Instagram followers and connections with major brands. We could collaborate, cross-promote. I could help you reach audiences you'd never access otherwise. And in return, just tone down the anti-Jake narrative. It's making things complicated for all of us. Men like Jake have long memories in this industry." "Is that a threat?" "It's reality. Look, I've been dating industry guys for 3 years. I know how they operate. They can make careers or destroy them. Jake's already started telling people you're difficult to work with. If you keep pushing this narrative about him being some kind of villain, it's going to follow you forever." "What if he actually is a villain?" Sophia had laughed. "Honey, they're all villains. The only question is which villain can help your career and which one can hurt it." That recording was going straight into my documentary. By the end of my first month post-rebirth, I had a record deal that preserved my creative control, a growing network of industry allies, a secret archive of evidence against music industry predators, and a platform that reached hundreds of thousands of people. Jake and Sophia had no idea what was coming. 3 months after our breakup, I was ready to begin Jake's systematic destruction. But I didn't start with him directly, I started with the songs. In my previous life, Jake had stolen my compositions by having me sign collaboration agreements that transferred rights to any songs we worked on together. He'd convinced me it was standard practice for couples in the industry, a way to protect both of us legally. I'd been so trusting, so eager to please, that I'd signed away the rights to 8 of my best songs without properly reading the contracts. Those songs had later been recorded by other artists on Jake's roster, earning him millions in publishing royalties and producer credits. The artists themselves probably hadn't known they were performing stolen material. Jake was skilled at creating plausible narratives about how he developed songs with various collaborators. This time, I had evidence, and I'd kept meticulous records of my songwriting process: voice memos with timestamps, early drafts with metadata, video recordings of myself working through melodies on my guitar. More importantly, I had the original acoustic demos I'd shared with Jake during our relationship, all backed up with creation dates that predated his collaborations by months. I started by reaching out to the artists who'd recorded my stolen songs. Most of them had no idea about the theft. They'd worked with Jake in good faith, trusting his claims about song origins. When I presented them with evidence that their hit singles were actually my compositions, their reactions ranged from horror to rage. Cassie Morrison, who'd recorded Midnight Confessions, originally my song Late Night Thoughts, was the first to speak publicly. She posted a video on her Instagram explaining how she'd been deceived and announcing that she was donating all royalties from the song to organizations supporting songwriter rights. I trusted my A&R representative to provide me with ethically sourced material, she said in the video. Learning that my biggest hit was stolen from another artist makes me sick. Maya Chen deserves credit, compensation, and an apology from me and from the industry that allowed this to happen. Marcus Santiago, whose Grammy-nominated track Empty Promises was actually my song Hollow Words, followed with his own statement and legal action. He'd had more success with the song than I could have dreamed of, but he immediately began the process of transferring writing credits and demanding that his label investigate how they'd acquired stolen material. Within 2 weeks, 5 artists had come forward with similar revelations. Jake's theft hadn't been limited to my songs. It was a pattern of exploitation that had been going on for years. He'd convinced dozens of emerging artists to sign collaboration agreements, then buried their original compositions in legal language that transferred all rights to him. The music press picked up the story immediately. Rolling Stone ran a feature titled "The A&R Predator: How Jake Matthews Built a Career on Stolen Songs." Pitchfork published a detailed investigation into Stellar Records' artist development practices. Billboard ran a series exploring how many other industry figures might be using similar exploitation tactics. But the most satisfying moment came when Jake's own label suspended him pending a full investigation into his business practices. The suspension happened on a Friday afternoon. Jake called me that evening, and I let it go to voicemail. "Maya, I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but this has gone too far. You're destroying people's livelihoods over some petty relationship bullshit. Call me back so we can figure out how to fix this before it gets even more out of hand." I posted the voicemail to Twitter with the caption, "When you expose systemic theft and they call it petty relationship bullshit, #songwriter rights." The tweet got 300,000 likes and was shared by major artists, industry organizations, and music journalists. Jake's attempt to frame the theft as romantic drama had backfired spectacularly. But I wasn't done with him yet. The song theft was just phase 1. Phase 2 targeted Sophia's influencer empire. Sophia had built her brand on authenticity and female empowerment, partnering with major beauty and fashion companies who paid her 6 figures to promote products to her 400,000 followers. She positioned herself as a successful entrepreneur who'd built her platform through talent and hard work, carefully omitting her history of manipulating artists and industry connections for personal gain. I'd become friends with several other influencers in Sophia's sphere, women who trusted her with brand partnerships, collaboration opportunities, and personal information. What they didn't know was that Sophia had been systematically sabotaging their careers while maintaining a facade of sisterhood and support. Using my network of industry contacts, I began gathering evidence of Sophia's manipulations. Instagram DMs where she'd badmouthed collaborators to brands. Email chains where she'd shared confidential information about other influencers' business deals. Voice memos where she'd bragged about destroying competitors' opportunities while pretending to be their friend. The evidence painted a picture of someone who'd weaponized female empowerment rhetoric to exploit the very women she claimed to support. I compiled everything into a comprehensive document and shared it with the influencers who'd been affected. They were furious, and they had platforms of their own. Emma Rodriguez, a lifestyle blogger with 150,000 followers, posted a detailed thread about how Sophia had sabotaged her partnership with a major skincare brand by spreading false rumors about Emma's professionalism. Jennifer Park, a fitness influencer, revealed that Sophia had stolen her content ideas and pitched them to brands as original concepts. Most damaging was testimony from Ashley Chen, a beauty YouTuber who'd considered Sophia a close friend. Ashley had shared details about a brand partnership she was negotiating, only to watch Sophia swoop in with the exact same proposal and secure the deal for herself. I trusted her with my business strategy, my personal struggles, and my career goals, Ashley said in a video that went viral within hours. She used all of that information to position herself as a better choice for opportunities I'd spent months developing. This isn't competition, it's exploitation disguised as friendship. The beauty and fashion brands that had partnerships with Sophia began distancing themselves immediately. Her engagement rates plummeted as followers realized her success had been built on the systematic destruction of other women's careers. Sponsors started terminating contracts, citing concerns about brand alignment and authenticity. Sophia tried to control the narrative by positioning herself as a victim of a coordinated attack by jealous competitors. She posted a tearful Instagram live session claiming that successful women were always targets for other women's envy and resentment. The response was swift and brutal. Women in the influencer space, many of whom had stayed silent about Sophia's behavior for years, started sharing their own stories of manipulation and exploitation. The hashtag #SophiaScams began trending as victims documented her pattern of behavior. Within a month, Sophia had lost 200,000 followers and most of her brand partnerships. Her PR company dropped her. The talent agency that booked her for events terminated her contract. But again, I wasn't finished. Phase 3 was corporate maneuvering designed to cripple Stellar Records itself. Using my knowledge of upcoming industry changes and market fluctuations, I'd positioned myself as a thought leader in music business strategy. I'd been invited to speak at conferences, contribute to industry publications, and advise other labels on artist development practices. My message was consistent. The music industry needed to fundamentally change how it treated emerging artists, and labels that continued exploitative practices would be left behind by market forces and cultural shifts. I wasn't just talking theory, I was making specific predictions about streaming platform changes, social media algorithm updates, and cultural trends that would reshape the industry. My accuracy rate was perfect because I was essentially reporting from the future. This positioned me to influence major decisions by industry leaders. When Universal Music was considering acquisitions, they consulted with me about which labels had sustainable business practices. When Spotify was planning their artist support programs, they asked for my input on which industry partnerships would be most effective. I used this influence to systematically isolate Stellar Records from major opportunities. When Universal was looking for mid-tier labels to acquire, I highlighted Stellar's artist exploitation issues as potential legal liabilities. When Spotify was selecting partners for their new songwriter development program, I provided documentation of Stellar's predatory contract practices. Most importantly, I began recruiting Stellar's best artists and executives. Marcus Rivera and I had developed a comprehensive strategy for poaching talent from labels with problematic practices. We offered better contracts, more creative control, and transparent business relationships. For executives, we provided opportunities to work for a label that valued ethical practices and long-term artist development over short-term exploitation. Within 6 months, Stellar had lost 3 of their biggest artists, 2 of their most successful A&Rs, and their head of digital marketing. Each departure was accompanied by public statements about seeking more ethical business partnerships. Jake watched his professional world collapse from the sidelines, still suspended pending the investigation into his theft practices. But I knew he wouldn't go down quietly. He was about to make his biggest mistake yet. Jake's counterattack came during the first week of November, and it was exactly as desperate and poorly planned as I'd expected. He'd hired Pinnacle Crisis Management, the same firm that had helped several disgraced politicians attempt comebacks. Their strategy was predictable: discredit me personally while minimizing the severity of the song theft allegations. The campaign began with a series of leaked anonymous sources claiming I had a history of mental health issues and obsessive behavior. Music industry blogs started running stories about my erratic social media posts and concerning pattern of targeting former romantic partners for career advancement. Sophia, despite her own crumbling empire, participated enthusiastically in the smear campaign. She gave an interview to a gossip podcast claiming that I'd threatened her during our meeting, that I'd seemed unhinged and fixated on destroying Jake's reputation. She painted herself as a concerned woman trying to warn the industry about my dangerous behavior. The most elaborate part of their strategy involved hiring a forensic audio analyst to claim that my time-stamped song demos had been doctored. They suggested that I'd retroactively created evidence of my songwriting by manipulating file metadata and voice recordings. It was a sophisticated attempt at character assassination, and in my previous life it might have worked. Back then, I'd been isolated without industry allies or a platform to defend myself. This time, I was ready. First, I released a statement that acknowledged their campaign directly. I expected this response. When you expose systematic theft and exploitation, the perpetrators always try to make it about your character instead of their crimes. But evidence speaks louder than PR campaigns. Then I let my allies respond for me. Marcus Rivera held a press conference featuring 5 artists whose stolen songs had been recovered through my documentation. Each artist presented their own evidence of Jake's theft, making it clear that this wasn't about one woman's obsession, but about industry-wide exploitation. The forensic audio analyst Jake had hired found himself contradicted by 3 independent experts who validated my metadata and recording evidence. It turned out that my meticulous documentation practices had created an unbreakable chain of evidence that no amount of PR spin could discredit. Most importantly, the influencers and industry figures I'd been supporting started sharing their own stories about Jake and Sophia's behavior. What had looked like an isolated conflict between exes suddenly became a pattern of systematic abuse that multiple victims could corroborate. Emma Rodriguez posted a detailed Twitter thread about how Jake had tried to pressure her into signing an exploitative publishing deal by threatening to blacklist her from industry events. Jennifer Park revealed that Sophia had attempted to manipulate her into breaking contracts with other brands so that Sophia could swoop in with competing offers. But the most devastating response came from an unexpected source, Jake's former assistant, Kelly Thompson. Kelly had worked for Jake for 3 years, handling his calendar, communications, and contract negotiations. She'd been loyally silent during the initial scandal, but watching him try to destroy my reputation had apparently been her breaking point. She contacted me through intermediaries, offering to share evidence of Jake's systematic exploitation of multiple artists. She had emails, text messages, recorded phone calls, and contract drafts that documented his theft patterns going back 5 years. I kept thinking he was just ambitious, she told me during our recorded conversation. But watching him try to destroy you for exposing the truth, I realized I'd been complicit in something really awful. I have evidence of at least 30 artists whose work he's stolen or whose careers he's sabotaged. Kelly's evidence was devastating. She had documentation showing that Jake's theft hadn't been limited to romantic partners. He'd exploited dozens of emerging artists, many of them young women who trusted him with their creative work and career aspirations. The evidence included email chains showing Jake instructing lawyers to bury rights transfer language in collaboration agreements, text messages where he bragged about harvesting songs from naive artists, recorded phone calls where he discussed strategies for isolating artists from industry support networks, contract drafts showing how he'd systematically structured deals to exploit artists' inexperience and desperation. Most damning was a recording Kelly had made of Jake discussing his relationship with me during our 6-month anniversary period. On the tape, he explicitly outlined his plan to manipulate my emotions to generate more creative output, then use our relationship to gain access to my song catalog. She's incredibly productive when she's emotionally destabilized, Jake's voice said clearly. The anniversary thing was perfect, got her writing some of her best stuff. Now I just need to figure out how to get publishing rights without making it obvious. I released Kelly's evidence as a comprehensive documentary series called The Music Industry's Predator Problem. Each episode focused on a different aspect of systematic exploitation, featuring interviews with affected artists, industry experts, and legal analysts. The series exploded across social media and streaming platforms. Music journalists used it as source material for deeper investigations into industry practices. Artist advocacy organizations cited it in congressional testimony about the need for stronger intellectual property protections. Jake's crisis management firm abandoned him after the documentary made their defense strategy impossible. No amount of character assassination could overcome recorded evidence of him literally planning to steal my songs and manipulate my emotions for creative exploitation. Stellar Records moved quickly to distance themselves from Jake, announcing his termination and launching their own investigation into potentially affected artists. They offered financial settlements to songwriters whose work had been stolen and implemented new contract review processes to prevent future exploitation. But Jake wasn't finished. Facing career annihilation and potential criminal charges, he made one final desperate move. He attempted to physically sabotage my first major tour. I was scheduled to perform at the Beacon Theater as part of a showcase for emerging artists. It was a prestigious venue that could launch careers, exactly the kind of opportunity Jake had spent years blocking me from accessing. My security team, yes, I now needed security, discovered him in the venue 3 hours before my sound check, attempting to tamper with my equipment. He'd gained access using his industry credentials and was trying to damage my guitar amplifiers in a way that would cause dramatic failure during my performance. The whole incident was captured on the venue's security cameras. Jake was arrested for criminal trespass and destruction of property, providing perfect footage for news outlets that were already covering our industry conflict. But the real victory was my performance that night. Despite Jake's attempted sabotage, I took the stage in front of 2,900 people and delivered the most powerful performance of my career. The setlist included 6 Months of Lies, the song that had started everything, along with new material that addressed themes of resilience, justice, and the power of truth. The audience gave me a 5-minute standing ovation. Music critics called it a star-making performance. Videos of my show went viral on social media, generating millions of views and cementing my reputation as an artist who could transform trauma into transcendent art. Jake watched from a jail cell while his career burned to the ground around him, but I still had one final move to make. The Grammy nominations were announced on a Tuesday morning in November, and my album Phoenix Rising received 4 nominations. Best New Artist, Song of the Year for 6 Months of Lies, Best Pop Vocal Album, and Album of the Year. I was invited to perform at the Music Industry Gala, the same event where Jake had expected to receive the Industry Innovation Award for developing new talent. The irony was so perfect, it felt scripted. The gala was held at the Beverly Hilton, with an audience that included every major player in the music industry. Record label executives, and representatives, producers, songwriters, and journalists all gathered to celebrate the year's achievements and network for future opportunities. I arrived wearing a custom dress designed by a sustainable fashion company I'd invested in, using my future knowledge. The gown was stunning, black silk with musical notes embroidered in silver thread. But the real statement was the message embroidered along the hem in tiny letters. Song stolen, truth revealed, justice served. The red carpet interviews were a masterclass in controlled narrative. When reporters asked about my conflict with Jake Matthews, I redirected to the broader issue of artist exploitation. When they inquired about my rapid rise to prominence, I credited the power of authentic storytelling and the music community's support for artist rights.